most kids had of work was either at the local burger joint or at the local supermarket. When I got to around 16, I tried my hand at the local burger joint. On the first day, my manager took me aside and said, "Imran, if you work really hard flipping burgers, one day you can have my job." So I started working really hard, and I realized something very important very, very quickly. I was unemployable. I was always asking really awkward questions. I always thought, maybe arrogantly, that I had a better or different way of doing things. I didn't really take very kindly to being told what to do if I didn't really agree with the way it was being done. So after 3 days, I got the sack. And when I was leaving, I'll never forget my boss's parting comments, which were, "You're a kid from Bolton. If you think you know about business, you're dreaming. You'll be back. I'll see you again." Those were his parting comments. They've stuck with me ever since. I've never forgotten that. See, he was right on both accounts. I was dreaming, and I've continued dreaming ever since. And dreaming has taken me from flipping burgers to owning my own modest but diverse business portfolio today. And he was also right on the second account. We recently passed a milestone in our business. We employed our 120th employee, who happened to be my ex-boss's son. Very, very satisfying. So that my first point is this: that keep dreaming, because as entrepreneurs, as business managers, that's what we are. We're dreamers that take risks. We're dreamers that learn to manage risk. And keep dreaming, dream often, and dream big. So that's my first message to my 18-year-old self. The next thing I'm going to say to my 18-year-old self is, never fear failure. Now, I went off to university to study optometry and vision science, which qualified me as an optician. And as soon as I finished university, I was actually never really interested in studying. I was up and down the country studying computers. I almost got kicked off my course 3 times. I managed to get my degree, and I set up my first business as an optician from scratch in Bolton. Now, I didn't really know much about an optical practice, but I had to very, very quickly learn about customers, suppliers, employees, working with the PCT, working with the NHS. And truth be told, from when I started that business till the day I sold it, I never really made it very profitable. What I learned in that business was that when I qualified, the marketplace was pretty saturated. And most of the optical landscape, there were a lot of independent practices which were coming up for retirement. The average age of an optician was around 53. A lot of these guys had enjoyed a very successful and profitable life in optics. Now they were coming up for retirement. So there's a great opportunity to start buying up practices which weren't necessarily working at optimum performance, had a little bit of slack in them, and then try and make them better. So I started buying up optical practices in 2s and 3s in and around the M60, M62 corridor in the northwest. We got to 50, 60 practices, 15, 16 practices, and we decided that we'd buy a lens laboratory. One of the main components in your supply chain in optics is lenses. Decided to buy a frame distribution business, which we took out of administration. It's the biggest frame distribution business in the country at the time. Had brands like Reebok, Longines, Revlon, with sole exclusivity for UK and Ireland. Now, I gained a lot of confidence from some of the lessons that I'd learned in that first business, which wasn't really profitable, hadn't made me a lot of money. And you might see that as a failure. But you see, there was a lot of lessons that I learned from that have stuck with me ever since. And those lessons are what have carried me through the following businesses that I've taken on. And my point would be that if you don't quite get it right the first time round, it's not a mistake, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. And it's only if you repeat the same thing twice and you don't take the lesson away from the first time you don't quite get it right, which is again something that James talked about with his sandwich business. He learned so much from not getting it right. It's only if you don't take those lessons away that it's truly a failure. One thing is for sure, as you guys go on to take on your own ideas and turn them into businesses, you will have setbacks. And it's how you react to those setbacks that will determine where you go on to. And you and those around you will, if you're pushing the boundaries, have setbacks. there's lots of lessons to be learned, and you've got to learn those lessons, otherwise they will become mistakes. I think failure isn't about, you know, not doing something because you think you're not going to get there, but it's about not taking action in the first place. So what's true is, I think every great entrepreneur, and those pictures that you saw just earlier on there, they all hold their hands up and tell you that they've had setbacks, and I can stand here and tell you about all the successes I've had, but I've had twice as many failures. So learn the lessons from those setbacks that you have. That's what I'm going to tell myself whilst I'm having this coffee. The next thing I'm going to tell myself is, anybody can do it. And to qualify this, I'm just going to quickly take you over that iTeddy journey that I showed you a showreel for at the beginning. Where did the idea come from? I was sitting at home, debating what would be a great gift for my niece when she turned 1 with my younger brother. True story. And he came up with this idea of a card with a mirror on the inside and a speaker built in, and you could record your own message. I thought that was a bit passé, so he said, probably a better idea than telephone. But what about taking something that's been around for over 100 years, something like a teddy bear, and combining it with a kind of technology that children find all around them? Children have got digital cameras, iPods, mobile phones. They're learning their QWERTY keyboard at the same time as they're learning their ABC. What about an iTeddy? Well, what's one of them? So maybe you could play a cartoon, your bedtime stories, you could store photos, and when you get bored, you could sell more content from iTeddy.com, which we could license. He said it would never work. The other thing I'd learned about myself very early on, and this is going back to the other message, this is why I had to change my presentation, because James already covered a lot of the messages. And Dan was saying to me just then as well that it's all the same stuff as a senior presentation. You find that when you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, it's the same sort of things that repeat again and again. Because it's not rocket science, but it's the same sort of concepts, mindset that all the best entrepreneurs usually have, or all the most successful entrepreneurs usually have. So I learned about, at a very early age, I learned about myself that I was challenge driven. What was it that got me up in the morning? If you told me I can't do something, like a red rag to a bull. So he said, I can do it. And we had a bet that we would prototype our individual ideas by my niece's first birthday. And that was 5 months away. So I quickly did some Google searches, had a look at what was going on in the toy market, and found that, yeah, a lot of the classic toys were being reworked with some sort of electronic functionality to make them more appealing to the 21st century kid. Things like Action Man and Barbie. So we were already manufacturing over in Far East. Whilst I was over there, I had this product prototype. I'm just going to keep the story short. Got over here, ended up on the Dragon's Den, and managed to convince Peter Jones and Peter Peters to obviously invest in it. We did a great launch with Argos over at London Zoo, and so I even managed to convince Peter and Theo to dress up in iTeddy costume, which is great. Got some great coverage. As Dan said, we worked very, very hard with our shoestring budget at the time on our marketing, with all sorts of stuff, and I think Dan gave a really humorous but very, very relevant presentation at the beginning. It would be very useful to look at the full-blown presentation if you made it available online. There was quite a lot of very useful pearls of wisdom. If you're a startup with a shoestring budget, the kind of guerrilla marketing techniques you can use to make your budget stretch a lot further. So after that initial deal that we did with Argos, at the end of the year, once our exclusive expired, that year we made iTeddy the second best-selling toy in Argos in '97 after Transformers. And Argos are the UK's second biggest toy retailer. We then sold it into every other UK retailer at the end of the year. And not just in the UK, the great thing about iTeddy, it's a bear. A bear's a bear in the UK as it is in Russia, as it is in China, or anywhere else in the world. It's a universal toy. And so then we sold it into every other 45 countries around the world. Not quite in space, that's what happens when you let your creatives run wild. I'm just going to try and quickly play you this if I can.
My teddy's iTeddy.